Hey everybody, my name is All Ego Ethan Page. Known by most for Evolve Wrestling, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Ring of Honor, I'm fairly successful. But what most people don't know is my very early beginnings. A company named NSW was actually the first company to really give me my start. And just this past weekend, on January 31st, Steve Brown, the owner of NSW, decided to throw a reunion event and bring back all the old faces of NSW and really give it the ending that he thought it deserved. Now, I say everything happens for a reason in life. And misfortune of tripping in my closet and knocking over a bookshelf landed 3 DVDs on the floor face up that read NSW documentary footage. Now, on these 3 DVDs, we had old interviews filmed with stars of NSW talking about the demise of a company that was actually never successful. So I've decided to use this footage and put together a little gift for Steve Brown on his birthday. I put together this documentary to remind you that NSW was fun. Yes, there was some assholes there, but for the most part, it was very special to a bunch of young, hungry athletes and your friends. So, without further ado, I present to you the fall and rise of NSW.
Can I get a countdown?
And go. And I'm recording.
Shut up.
Okay, I'm recording. Recording.
Not too much to say about that.
Chapter 1, the leaders of the new school.
Not too much to say about them. Go through the names with me. We'll play the one-word game.
The Prodigy.
Good guy.
Timothy Dalton.
Overrated.
Steve Brown.
Good guy.
Adam Reed.
On juice.
Logan Savage.
Good guy.
Jay Phoenix.
Very overrated.
Kyle Davenport.
Really? Bag?
Mercy.
Slut?
Pandora.
Useless.
That's it? That's all you gotta say
That's
about
all
it?
I gotta say about that.
Alright, so me, Tim, Steve, and Reese were all in UWA. I'm doing fairly good there. And then when NSW started up, we decided to all become a faction. And with Steve booking and Tim talking a lot, we ended up being in every second or third segment of the show. And we eventually all ended up with titles.
The leaders of the new school, wow, I don't even really remember that much. But I know that half the group started out in the UWA hardcore, and they kind of created their own faction of stable men. And I knew that that was the big faction going on in NSW. When I first started at LWA, I knew I wanted to get to NSW, and once I got there, I would know about the leaders, but that's about all I know about the leaders.
The leaders of the new school was basically a bunch of guys that got fired from UWA who started their own promotion. Steve Brown and then Adam Reed came along as the best friends, and I can't remember who else was in it. It was that chick and someone else. But they all joined in, they had a stable, they all won titles because they were all booking the show, and I joined eventually because I wanted to win a title and book a show. That was them.
I think Steve was in that. I don't know who that.
Leaders of the New School, a bunch of funny guys all banded together. I can't even remember who was in it. I think it was Logan Savage, Steve Brown, Adam Reed, Timothy Dalton, Horace Hogan, Ric Flair was in it at one time, I believe. It was just a mix of people. It was funny though, because it was every show. It was like our version of NWO, and just everyone was in it at one time. You lose track, but it was so funny. They were out every segment. We were always doing stuff. NSW was notorious for not underbooking things.
I have mixed feelings on the leaders of this new school, being one of the leaders of the new school. The whole concept of NSW really came as kind of like a revolt or a spite to UWA in the first place, as like the fuck you, like you don't want us, we're gonna go build our own place and we're gonna bring your fans to us. And like it never really reached the peak that it probably should have, because there's tons of mistakes along the way. Like the leaders of the new school in general, like it was sort of like an NWO idea, but the idea never really worked because we cared about the promotion, but we were a little too selfish at times, wanting to constantly put ourselves on the pedestal and never bring anyone up on the pedestal, so you had some even ground, so that there was matches people were interested in. We just dominated the headlines constantly, so it was boring to watch after a while.
Michael Elgin, yeah. Well, obviously on this DVD, I'm sure a lot's going to be said that's good and bad and joke stuff about him. But to be honest, that guy has helped me out a lot. When he first came into NSW, we worked together and he taught me a lot of things. Whoever he's working, like he worked Fresh Shoal this one time and I pulled out the best match out of Fresh Shoal. I don't know how he did it, but he did do it. That's just who he is. He brings out the best in everyone.
Michael Elgin is basically a political genius. It's supposed to be a triple threat match with Timothy Dalton versus Kevin Steen versus BJ Whitmer, and then somehow became a four-way match, and Michael Elgin worked his way in there.
And he worked every single name that ever came in except Matt Sydal. But I'm sure he tried, because it only made sense.
Good guy, hard worker. Probably the pinnacle of Ontario indie wrestling right now.
Bringing in Elgin was one of the best ideas for NSW, because it brought in someone, because in the beginning NSW, it was hard to attract anyone that had been around a while to come and start with this new rogue promotion that really had a bunch of students and a bunch of ex-UWA guys, and the current indie guys despised the UWA guys. So there was a hate for the UWA, and there was a hate for these guys going and starting their own new promotion. So it was really hard to get anybody to actually come and work, let alone come and work for not a lot of money, because we didn't make a lot of money. Like a lot of us worked for free because the promotion was suffering, we weren't making any money. So Michael Elgin came in and he brought Mike Stevens with him, and it really helped everybody learn and become better, because they wanted to strive for what he was doing and come up to his level and adapt his work ethic and make the promotion better.
St. Stephen Elias has to be the most bulbous, obtuse-looking human being I have ever seen in my life. He has this... It's an actual tire of fat around his waist. He's got diabetes or something, and I never found him to be as funny as he thought he was. He's a really nice guy.
I really can't remember much. I remember Stephen Elias having blue snakeskin gear at one time, and that was about it. Yeah, I love the guy though.
I don't know those guys.
Stephen Elias and the Anaconda. I don't even know what to say about them.
I guess we were kind of the Triple H in China of the NSW without the work rate, because you know I'm no game, and well, she's no China, I guess.
And the Anaconda is bigger than me, so I'm not going to say anything.
Speaking of not making the promotion better, Stephen Elias and the Anaconda, I'm just kidding.
Skip that. I'm skipping.
He's skipping.
Chris Law, Brett Scholl, funniest feud in the history of Ontario indie wrestling.
Brett Scholl versus Chris Law was always terrible, but Chris Law got powerbombed off the stage this one time onto this table that was just kind of laying on the ground anyway. Wasn't really a table, it was a broken piece of wood. It was the stupidest idea ever, it was completely dangerous. And they thought it was a good idea. Chris Law never stopped complaining about his back after that.
What?
I was there.
Yeah?
I was a fan back in the day.
Okay.
Chris Law taking a power bomb on a piece of plywood off the stage and on a bench, I believe, to the concrete floor. It was not very well thought out, but it was really funny.
Chris Law got powerbombed off the stage onto basically concrete. He fell like right through the table. The table cracked instantly. Concrete. Chris Law, broken back. That's how it is. Well, that's what happens when you do stupid shit.
I don't know who those guys are.
Oh, Chris Law. Accountant turned crazy kid, turned accountant, turned boy band. And Brett Scholl is a one-man party. Fucking love that guy.
I remember one day I came in for practice, wrestling practice that is, the week before NSW show, and they were planning to hit Chris Law with a car. They were actually practicing this. I've never laughed so hard in my life. Those two, when they actually went out there, they killed each other.
Chris Law and Brett Scholl were probably the two shittiest wrestlers that were ever in NSW, but they were so entertaining. Brett could make everybody laugh with everything that he would do, even when he wasn't trying to be funny, just anything that he said came out funny. And their matches were terrible and so dangerous, and that just made them that much more funny.
It was entertaining because it was an abortion.
What are your thoughts on Rip Impact?
He's a fucking piece of shit. That, like, right now is yelling. So we're trying to film something, but no, he doesn't really care. That's what we're
Hey!
Rip Impact was getting booked everywhere in the Indies, and he was in NSW, and everyone talked about how nice he was, how great of a wrestler he was, and he was just okay, and he wasn't that nice of a guy, and he would work for macaroni salad. I saw him agree to it.
Rip Impact is,
Rip Impact, the most overrated piece of shit.
I tell him he has the charisma of a beige wall, and he knows that, and he'll tell you that because he's a nice guy. But he's not as fucking nice as he says he is, because I know he's a piece of shit and an asshole, and I'm on to him, and I hope everyone else finds it out one day as well.
NSW even started from doing LLWA like student shows, and he always used to be in the crowd heckling people, and it always frustrated me because you'd have those normal fans that would heckle you, those rednecks, and they'd heckle you, but you wouldn't like take it to heart, and then he'd try to like jab in little shoot comments, and it used to get under my skin.
When I first came to NSW and I saw Julian, I had no clue who he was, but everybody else seemed to know him. And Steve was talking, telling him all these things that he was doing. I'm like, this guy must be fairly high up in the business to be doing all this stuff for NSW. But I couldn't look at him. Like, the only thing that I noticed about him whenever I was talking to him is that he blinked a lot.
Julian Logan was NSW's Joey Styles. He did the backstage interviews, he did announcing, he did commentary, he did whatever they needed to be done at the time because they didn't book someone to actually do it. And he filled in, and he eventually learned how to be good at it. He was pretty good. And yeah, I don't know, that's about it.
You know, he got a lot better with his mic skills. His NSW hat wasn't crooked anymore, it was straight.
And he's like, I think I'm gonna use Julian. Julian's like one of my best friends. Like, what? Like, how did you become like talking to Steve? He's like, oh, we were just like ripping shit up on camera today, and he thought it was funny, so I'm involved now. That was about it. He started off as a commentator, announcer, Mark, and now he's Mark/wrestler, basically.
Extreme Warfare was a crazy show.
Extreme Warfare was the big NSW show. They got a big venue in Mississauga, and it was supposed to be their takeover of UWA or something, I guess.
Like that card of Extreme Warfare must have got changed about 1,400 times because nothing was set in stone except that Matt Sydal was coming in. I know Sexy Eddie was supposed to come in, that's why I put 3 X's in the name, but he never came for some reason. And
then I was facing Matt Sydal, who's Evan Bourne now in the WWE, and main evented. I remember the main event going on something around 11 at night because the show just went on so long. A bunch of people left because it was so long, but we still put it all out there. Good job for him. He didn't have to work that hard for such a small crowd, but did a great job. I think together we put on a really good match.
Booked a lot of talent, a lot of different Ontario guys that never worked NSW before. A lot of guys from outside came in, like BJ Whitmer, Kevin Steen, Matt Sydal. And I remember the BJ Whitmer and Kevin Steen match. It was a 3-way with, I can't remember who the other guy was. But eventually Elgin ended up in it. Elgin worked twice that night. His first match went 47 minutes versus Mike Stevens, and he let me know how epic it was. It was good, but I didn't need to be reminded 13 times. And then he was in the match with the names because it only made sense. And Adam Reed worked the main event against Matt Sydal, and that was really good, other than the fact that it was after midnight. There was only 9 people left because, well, it was bedtime.
The only thing I remember him for was taking the light tube shot from Zach Atticus that no one cared about. That's Kyle Davenport.
F. Smith or Kyle Davenport, that fucking gem.
What a fag.
Awesome.
Kyle Davenport was hilarious. What's some funny stories?
At some point in the match, I had to punch him. Now, usually in wrestling, when you punch a manager and you're a wrestler, that manager will stay down for a long period of time. Funny clip if you can find it. I punch him. Within 4 seconds, he's getting up. So me, in my angry mode, I stomped his head, and you can see his head go straight into the pavement. It's one of my crowning moments.
You're not Superman, Phoenix.
He has a car, great car, but it's just a really funky color, kind of flamboyant looking, so kind of, yeah. But I remember Chris Law hated it, and Jeff won't get it, or Kyle Davenport won't get paid because it was his grandfather's legitimate reason. And but every show, and like we were running shows that seemed like weekly, and every show Chris Law would either piss or shit or puke or fucking spit on this car on the door handles, and like every day. Kyle Davenport would open the door handle and just freak out.
Kyle Davenport, wow, that guy has got some of the craziest ideas. Candy canes, I'm sure you'll hear it all on this DVD. I don't even know. Stripper on a pole match. He just loves it all.
Kyle Davenport was one of the funniest characters on set and behind the scenes that you'll ever find in any situation, work environment, pro wrestling, pro sports. He was one of the funniest characters because he took himself so seriously. Like, he thought he was a serious manager, that he had serious talent, and he seriously had none of it. It was...
At the time, he had no idea about anything to do with wrestling. He just loved wearing belt buckles that lit up and having a cane, and he thought that his shirt with sequins on it looked great, and he was just an awful wrestling manager, and yeah.
Kyle Davenport is, I will fucking talk. No. Got a green highlighter. That's
Cory Mason was a piece of shit.
Generation Now was 2 good wrestlers and a piece of shit.
Robert put his face on the ground. Cory Mason, I guess, was okay.
Just embarrasses himself on a regular basis by putting up this facade of being a professional wrestler. I don't even know how to elaborate any more on this. He had a horrible attitude. He didn't want to work with anybody. He expected the world of everybody else, but didn't put any fucking thing into the promotion himself. He just expected everyone to just spoon feed him shit, and he fucking sucked.
The end of NSW, the last show, was in Mississauga. I remember it was actually probably the best venue that we ever ran. And I think there was a decent crowd of probably 50 to 100 people, which was leaps and bounds over some of the crowds.
And Page versus Eddie Osborne, which is a blow-up of their feud, which is really good. And It's Win It, which was supposed to be with Nigel McGuinness. I think we were supposed to pick him up from the airport, but that never happened. So we brought in a replacement, which was Claudio Castagnoli. Took on Michael Elgin, who actually had a broken wrist, and he was wearing a cast. He gave her. And me, myself, and Scott O'Shea versus the Suicide Kids. It was like a NSW, BSE tag team battle.
It ended because Steve ran out of money.
Steve never had that.
Let's go with the trailer.
Steve's
Whatever, ran out of money.
She's a bitch.
Memories.
Alright,
Steve's
come on,
bitch ran out of
memories.
money.
and Elgin worked Claudio Castagnoli in the main event, even though he had a broken hand, because Steve Brown's the booker. Or was it Elgin? You'll never know.
Working for 30 people.
I don't think anyone cared. Like, NSW was like a really tight family. Like, at that time, most of us weren't really getting work anywhere else because, like, I was like 15 or 16 at the time. I wasn't even legally allowed to work. A bunch of us were. I think Justin Sane, Alex Short, Cory Mason, Sean Cassidy. Like, we were all really young, and like everyone, no one was really breaking out at that time. We were all still super new. So NSW was the only place we had. So like, there could have been 1 or 30 or 300 people. We didn't care. We went out. We had a good time. We worked hard.
NSW, it was never the best drawing company because mainly the shows were just hyped on the internet. And when they were advertised, probably wasn't done in the best way. But it was put together, guys had heart, guys showed up early. I love showing up at 10 in the morning, getting it together with everybody, spending the entire day doing the show. The show doesn't end until like midnight, you go out afterwards. It's a long ass day, but it was a lot of fun. When I first started out, this was great. I didn't care if I was working P.P. Smalls and Dynamite Dino. Well, that wasn't too fun, but anyway. You know, I always went out there and I did my best because I was just starting. And then later on as I progressed, I still went out there and did my best. And I got to work with a lot of guys that, you know, they turned out to be really good, and they still are working today. And NSW is just a great place for me to get my start.
I think of probably the most fun I've ever had wrestling. Probably the best group of guys I've ever been with in wrestling. Best locker room, best everything. Not best payday, but you know what? Best locker room, best guys, best everything. It was just something that I'll never forget, something that I will hold deep in this heart, and that's about it.
Memories. Number one douche. Number one douche. Devin Parkside. Where do you wrestle now? Oh, that's right, you don't wrestle now. 5 years later, I'm still working. Where the fuck are you? Oh, that's right. You're a soup server at Tim Hortons. Fucking hockey piece of shit. Where do I wrestle? I wrestle all over. Where do you wrestle? Get your dick out of your pants to piss, you piece of shit.
Alright, NSW was... That show was just a great time by everyone in the locker room. You knew on the day of an NSW show, the whole day was going to be fun. You get there early, hang out with everybody, have a great show, and then go out and hang out afterwards. It just made for a fun time all around. People weren't competing as much to get the best spot or to get the best payout. They weren't trying to bury somebody else to make themselves look better. Everyone was just there and having a really good time doing it.
NSW was probably my favorite promotion I worked for. It gave me lots of headaches, joy. It was kind of like having a baby and watching it grow up. I didn't get paid the most or have my best matches there, but I was always with my friends, and that was the best company to keep. And I just loved working for NSW.
There's good memories of hanging out with the guys from NSW before and after shows. It's really where all the wrestlers get to bond and really get to know each other. That's probably the best part of doing shows, going from town to town and doing shows like that. And what's NSW?
So there it is. A quick, brief but fun documentary, reminding everyone exactly how special a company that wasn't even special to fans, yet very special to the talent involved. And that was a video for Steve specifically, but honestly anyone that had any part in NSW. But this wouldn't be a proper documentary without either a very tragic ending, usually a death, but spoiler alert, nobody dies. So this documentary actually ends on a very high note. Because if you remember in my introduction, I mentioned that Steve Brown decided on January 31st, 2016 that he would host a reunion show. But more importantly, he would host an event to give what he said would be the proper ending to something that he held so near and dear. And now I'm going to throw it to an introduction from a man who is notorious with NSW, and some people had some choice things to say about a man named Kyle Davenport.
Hi, I'm Jeff Smith, and I'm one of the early NSW originals. Not a wrestler, but a manager. So I have a different perspective on the whole NSW phenomenon, and of course helping behind the scenes as well. So in October, Steve Brown posted something on Facebook, just getting a feel for whether or not people would be interested in participating in an NSW reunion. And this was talked about over the last 8 years, every year, or, shoot the shit. And then people really got on board. I was really surprised to see Michael Elgin jump on board, and Del Bruno and all that. Elias and I were a little bit more skeptical. Steve Brown tried to be serious, and we right away got a little cynical. But it worked out, so Steve went ahead and plotted his date, January 31st, 2016, and that was it. Then the question would be who would really come through and be part of it. Surprisingly, some of the people who did comment from the past weren't there this past Sunday. But Steve tried, and he contacted, and a lot of people have either grown out of it or they have families and work responsibilities. But Steve really did try. And a lot of the old guys, Alex and Kurt and Paige, they were on board relatively quickly, and Elgin was too. I mean, I think that was a very important addition. It's unfortunate he ended up having to be in Japan. Unfortunate in the sense that it would have been special to NSW, not unfortunate to him because, hell, it's very successful. And then it's talked about trying to get more people from the past. And Dalton, and even though I tried, we could not reach Tim. There was no way of reaching Tim. We couldn't do it, and that was disappointing. However, Prodigy Reese, who you've seen on this documentary, did come through. A lot of back and forth. I talked to him because it was very important if I was going to do it that he was going to do it because of the manager-wrestler tandem. And it was a lot of back and forth, and Steve, I think even today, talk about back then, Steve still put up with a lot from me in making sure that things went off. And it did. January 31st, we were all there, those who could be. And surprisingly, there was a draw. There were people. There were fans. So what Steve was able to pull off was something that even those who were fully willing to jump on board from the first place didn't expect. And that's to actually put on a good NSW show with a real draw. And that helped inspire us before and during the show because we didn't expect it. So when, some of us didn't want to do as much on the show, it was suddenly, oh, let's do this. Oh, I'll do this. Okay, I'll agree to do this. And then the show just developed. 45 minutes overtime, but it wouldn't be NSW if it didn't run overtime. And all in all, at the end of the day, you have to pat Steve on the back and say, geez, we all got together one more time, did a lot of special moments, brought on some new people who are on the scene now, mixed them in, and Steve, through this show, still did what he always did, and that's give us all, new and the originals, opportunity once again. And that's the foundation of NSW, was opportunity for those who might not have got it. And boy, did we prove all those naysayers wrong.